Hi, my name is Ed Hicken. I teach at John F. Ross CVI, and this is a presentation I did a few years ago, and I've updated it a few times now, and I'm just kind of breaking it down into some video chunks for collegial sharing out there on the internet. So if you're watching this, everything in it is going to be shared through a Google Drive link, and you can access that several times. I've got a few different places, and I'll also put it in the comments for this video. And all the Google Drive links will be such that you can view them, and then you can use the make a copy feature that Google Drive offers and have access to that and edit away to your heart's content. So my email address is on the screen right now, right here. Let me do the fun thing because I like this. There we go, my laser pointer. Anyway, there's the email address, and you can ask me any questions about anything you're seeing here. I'm more than happy to respond, and if something isn't clear or you need additional permissions or whatever, help with making a copy and sharing or whatever, let me know. So anyway, BBI Labs. What are BBI Labs? I've got my little sub-nodes down here. These are, and I think I've called them labs just because it sounds cool, really. Like, it sounds better than activities or goofing around or whatever other thing. So calling it a lab sounds sciencey and fun and a little bit more hands-on. For me, where it differentiates from being a science lab is that I watch my science colleagues have a ton of prep to go into what they have to do. And most of these I have conceived with very little planning or marking that have to be done around them. They're just kind of activities you can pull out, and hopefully with what I've shared with you, with other than maybe making some photocopies or adding something to a Slideshow or Google Classroom, you're going to be ready to go. You don't have to mark them, and some have a bit of marking now from when I originally started it, but it's entirely like whatever works for your classes. That's all I care about. When I originally started sharing this stuff, the idea was just to put ideas out there. And I think we're in a pretty cool profession in that we get to do this sort of thing. We share our ideas pretty liberally. I've not worked anywhere where teachers haven't been willing to kind of like hand over wholesale just lessons or ideas or activities or whatever, rubrics to colleagues who need material. And I'm doing this because it was like handed out to me. Most of these are things that have come my way from other people, and I've tweaked and adapted, and I just like want to keep that circle going, pay it forward, whatever cliche you want to say. I just want to have that stuff out there so more people can use it. So I like this quote. I like this philosophy. I think lots of other professions have the idea of like hoarding creativity, like it's a finite resource. And I think the more you share, and every time I've presented these, every time I've talked with colleagues about these from my board or others, I get like new ideas from what other people are doing with their school. And I love that. I love that idea of, I don't know, this like creativity begets creativity. Here we go. So what is, and I've kind of already introduced this a little bit in my like intro spiel, but it has to relate obviously to curriculum either directly or create a conversation around curriculum stuff. So you're going to want to check some boxes off, obviously. Our curriculum is like well over a decade old and has not been updated. So, it is what it is. I feel like most of us in BBI or in business at all are probably wholesale rewriting bits of it to update for the world we live in today. And a lot of this stuff is kind of like evergreen. To use some buzzwords, you can whatever's going on in the world, you can tweak and adjust it and make it still valid and useful, or it's like timeless. And I'm super overselling it right now. Anyway, my other criteria for labs, or one of my other criteria, is it has to engage my least likely to be engaged students. BBI is an open course. Our department head, Greg Causey, likes to say that we were de-streamed before de-streaming was cool. And absolutely, BBI is an open level course. You will get students of all ability levels, and my I guess threshold for something to succeed as a lab in my world has to be that like it gets all students excited, but in particular the ones who I often have trouble getting excited around regular lesson things. I have these 3 C's that I don't know, I am sure someone else has coined, but creativity, competition, and curiosity. I think should feature at least one of those in any of these activity, or potentially a combination of all of them, because hey, the more the better. These are my other selfish pieces, is that most of these, I've been a business teacher for 20 years now, and a chunk of that time, a significant chunk, I had young children in my world, and I was the person dropping them off at elementary school right near the high school where I teach. And oftentimes I would walk into class minutes before the bell or seconds after the bell or whatever my morning needed. So a lot of these activities, I couldn't have a huge window of time to organize all the materials. So I've tried to have them all with very little prep time. Once you actually understand the teacher piece of this, there's maybe photocopying, or maybe just nowadays just handing out the digital copy in your Google Classroom or whatever. I have field tested either myself or colleagues here. We have this year, I don't know, something like 15 sections or 12 sections of BBI running. I've got other colleagues that have two. We have one teacher who basically their full-time job is Intro to Business, 2 semesters worth. So there's lots and lots of tinkering and experimenting going on with our BBI stuff. Any ideas that I have tested, I've taught BBI probably closing it on 50 or more times now. And all this stuff has worked for me on multiple occasions. So I'm not going to try to say this is something I've done and haven't actually run the gauntlet in my classroom with it. All the content is on the website. There is the QR code. If you want to hold your phone up to the screen right now, it'll take you to my my resource folder on Google Drive. And there's also a link in the slideshow, but that's useless to you if you're just watching the video. Some pros of these things: they fill lessons with an interesting activity that makes time go fast and moves the course forward or reinforces the lessons. And I like this. I like it when kids look up at the clock at the end of the period and they can't believe the time has gone by. This was super, super important the last couple of years doing quadmesters, or when you were seeing one group of kids for all morning or all afternoon. You wanted to not have to sit with textbook and slides and whatever. And I think all of us who are, thoughtful about the job, we did this for our own self-interest too. You don't want to have to talk for 2.5 hours straight. You want to do some things that are going to engage your students, and it's going to make the time move for you and for them, as well as cover some content. I wanted to engage my students more than typical seat work, which I think is a goal we've all been shooting for probably since day one, but I like to continue to push it a little bit every year just to keep myself uncomfortable and keep myself learning new things. And as I've mentioned before, no need to mark any of these unless you really, really want to. Some more selfish reasons for why you might want to pick some of these is if you have a TPA, which for whatever reason still doing in a pandemic, if you are being evaluated, these are pretty useful to have in your vault or in your magical suitcase of things you can do. They're very student-centered. They can be differentiated. A lot of them, kids can take different approaches to them. So whoever's evaluating you, you can connect this to all sorts of good things we're supposed to be doing as teachers. And a lot of these build buzz. A lot of them are very visible activities, not so much in pandemic teaching, but in just teaching in general. Once we kind of get things back to normal, a lot of these you can do in a very visible way, either in the halls of your school or an activity where you can invite other classrooms to come and visit your classroom and come walk through. So it kind of, it helps feed your business sections. We have, I think, not 8 full-time teachers, but we have 8 teachers, most of whom are full-time, and a couple part-time teachers in our business department. We kind of all work together with this philosophy of making BBI fun and engaging and growing all of our courses. And I've mentioned the little prep thing a number of times. So again, I've started off with this disclaimer, but I'm going to restate it. I've taught BBI a lot. I kind of think I enjoy it. I kind of feel like I do some interesting things in my room, but most of this stuff has been either wholesale stolen or inspired by what other people are doing. So first off, if you're watching this and some of this stuff is yours or you've used it, let me know and I will fully attribute it to you. I've just kind of lost track over the years of where a lot of these have come from. I've tried to tweak a few things or change them and make them my own. But anyway, if your stuff is here, consider it like copying or whatever. Imitation sincerest form of flattery. That thing. Yeah. Anyway, I have a whole bunch of these ideas. I've used kind of all of them, but I don't necessarily use all of them every semester. I just have these and I'll pick and choose whatever my class seems to need or what I kind of feel like is going to work on any particular day. And as I've mentioned, I hope to maybe steal some more ideas. Like if I've stolen in the past, it's a pattern of behavior that I'm likely to repeat in the future, right? So I'm hoping I can get some more ideas. So here is where all this stuff slots in. And I'm not, in this one video, I'm kind of just introducing the broad strokes here, and we'll follow up with some other things. Where we do various things, we do our BBI course. And this is a new slide, because when I first started talking about this, a lot of people asked me how we laid BBI out and why we did it differently than the textbook or whatever. So depending on who teaches it, we sometimes follow the flow of the textbook, which if you're have any of the BBI textbooks generally begin with business fundamentals. I think this is the way the curriculum lays it out too, then functions, then entrepreneurship, and then culminating stuff or whatever. We actually took our personal finance unit, which I think is in the middle or the end of most things. It's at the end of the textbook at least. And we moved that to the front end of the course for a number of reasons. We kind of like teaching personal finance. We rebranded the course as Introduction to Business and Personal Finance, or Introduction to Personal Finance and Business, for our grade 8 parents night. It was very appealing to parents. We did this kind of around the financial crisis, but it's been a great selling point for the course ever since. Generally, I would tell the students about it. I go, even if you don't get anything else out of this course, you're going to get some personal finance and money management skills. And regardless of whether you start your own company, work in accounting or whatever, you're going to need money management skills. So yeah, we lead off with that. I'm going to talk about this counterfeit detection thing that I start my course with. We have a few little activities. These are short labs, long labs in here. Then we get into business fundamentals. There's stuff all over the map on that one. And as well, functions of the business, again, short, long, different activities that we'll talk about. So I kind of have these activities in this order right now. And so I'm breaking them down into three different sections: short, which are about 15 minutes in length; medium, which can be half an hour to maybe a full period's worth of activity; and finally the long labs, which are I would say at least one period. Some of these I will stretch over a day or two, depending on what's going on. And this is assuming a 75-minute class. And as I've mentioned, you could mark any of these if you really wanted to, but you don't need to. One of the competitive aspect of a lot of these mean that students will often engage and compete without the incentive to mark that some seem to need. Anyway, I've also got one final thing that we'll talk about here. Whenever I talk about play money, we have these Ross School of Business dollars that we have made. I've got a template that I've shared. Basically, our play money I use in a number of different activities. This mutual fund one that I still mention here in the slide, I don't do so much anymore. I'm maybe going to get back to it now that we're not a quadmester and we got more time to kind of flex things out and do some activities. I definitely still do show a mini Ponzi scheme. I don't run a Ponzi scheme. I demonstrate one. And with our paper planes, we use it for budgeting, and kids just kind of really like it. Kids think they'll steal some of my fake money. I don't care. We've got a plastic shopping bag full of this that we just print up with our department logo on, and we just run new stuff every once in a while. It hasn't been great, with the sharing of resources. We haven't been using it so much. We've been more kind of miming some of the Ponzi scheme stuff. But I feel as we get more back into being able to have students share things and pass things around, it's something that will come back into vogue. All right, and so on the next time we see one another, I'm going to discuss the short labs, the 15-minute or less topics. And so that'll be the next video. We'll talk to you then.